Historically, the Democratic Party had the worst impact on black people, especially during the Reconstruction era and the Jim Crow period, which spanned from the late 19th century to the mid-20th century. During this time, Southern Democrats were key players in the creation and enforcement of segregation laws and systemic racial oppression. They defended slavery before the Civil War and, after the war, opposed Reconstruction, civil rights protections, and the right to vote for black people. Examples of Democratic Party's negative impact during this period. 1. Jim Crow laws. Southern Democrats were instrumental in creating and enforcing these laws, which legalized racial segregation and disenfranchised black citizens for decades. 2. Opposition to civil rights. For many years, Democrats in Congress, particularly Southern Democrats, blocked civil rights legislation and efforts to protect black Americans from racial violence and disenfranchisement. 3. Violence and voter suppression. Southern Democrats were closely aligned with groups like the Ku Klux Klan, which used terror to prevent black people from voting or exercising their rights during Reconstruction. However, by the mid-20th century, there was a major realignment in U.S. politics. The Democratic Party, especially under presidents like Franklin D. Roosevelt, John F. Kennedy, and Lyndon B. Johnson, began advocating for civil rights. This culminated in Johnson's signing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. After the Civil Rights Movement, many white Southern Democrats, Dixiecrats, switched to the Republican Party, which then began using the Southern strategy to appeal to voters disillusioned by civil rights gains. While the Democratic Party became more aligned with civil rights, the Republican Party's policies, particularly regarding mass incarceration and opposition to affirmative action, have since negatively impacted black communities in more recent decades. In summary, historically, the Democratic Party had the worst impact on black people from the Civil War until the Civil Rights Movement, mid-1960s, due to its support of slavery, segregation, and disenfranchisement. In more recent history, from the late 1960s onward, the Republican Party has implemented policies, e.g., the war on drugs, mass incarceration, that have also disproportionately harmed black Americans. Both parties have had damaging impacts at different points, but historically, the Democratic Party had the most direct and long-lasting negative effects before the political realignment of the 20th century.